Join me on Freshwater Fish Freak as we explore the inhabitants and the daily habits of my aquariums. This week, we take an in-depth look at the Quetzalcoatl tank. This is A Fish Bios, Volume 1. Please like and subscribe to my channel. First on our list is Mr. Feisty, Tank Boss. When Mr. Feisty isn't tending to his duties as tank boss, he enjoys long stares at the left glass panel to the TV. He especially enjoys The Walking Dead, but who doesn't? During water changes, he temporarily suspends his career as tank boss and retreats to the log that he has a very complicated relationship with. Fish Swordtails, name Devon. Devon is a marathon swimmer. In a typical day, he spends his time racing from one end of the tank to the other, ever trying to shave off an additional millisecond in hopes to break his previous record. On occasion, he changes the pattern of his swimming from side to side to up and down. Truly, it is as exciting as it is exhausting to watch his never-ending training for the big leagues in the Fishy Olympics. Our other swordtail is James. James is a recluse, but he does have a goofy side. He spends most of his time bathed in the shadow of the Quetzalcoatl statue. He feels like the statue gives him strength to face everyday struggles of living in a glass box, though he also likes to pretend the statue is a hat when he's feeling goofy. Fish Glass Catfish, name Fran. Fran spends much of her time living in the branches of the Amazon sword plant, where she listens to her collection of classic algae-coated vinyl albums. However, when the tank lights turn off, she's ready for her night outside of her plant. Named Steven. Much like Fran, Steven spends much of his time listening to whatever vinyl record Fran plays. Most songs he doesn't mind, but you can often find him out and about whenever she's listening to Supertramp. Fish Platies. Name Fred. Fred longs to usurp Mr. Feisty from his throne as tank boss. However, due to his size restrictions, he recognizes this is an impossible task and settled on bullying James and Devon. Mr. Feisty, however, recognizes his responsibility and is constantly separating Fred from his misdeeds against Devon and James. Name Nick. Nick isn't exactly a bully, but he does like to play practical jokes on Fran and Steven, often by eating whichever record Fran is currently listening to, or creeping up behind Steven and shouting "Boo!" at the top of his gills just to get a reaction. The tank boss is usually too busy with Fred to address Nick's antics. Name Marceline. Marceline, though not a tank boss, tries to help out by handling Nick as Mr. Feisty has his fins full dealing with Fred. She can often be found chasing Nick back out of the Amazon sword to ruining his surprise on Steven. Rumors surfaced a few months ago about a relationship between Marceline and Nick, though nothing has been substantiated. And finally, we have Mrs. Sunburst. Mrs. Sunburst is married to Fred. It's often been speculated that she is the true motive behind Fred's desire for power, as she never seems satisfied with their meager life together and is constantly pushing him to do more. Pangeo Loach. Name Jake. Jake enjoys cool summer days under his rock near the left pane of the tank. This gives him ample opportunity to reflect on how best to remove the Java moss that intermittently gets placed in the tank. Sadie. Sadie follows Jake's lead when it comes to tearing out the Java moss. She enjoys his company and is often found following him around like a lost puppy, even though he often pretends not to notice her. The entire community wonders why he puts on that facade, as they all know they are a couple. Fish Neon Tetras. Names? Nate, Julian, Mr. Pibb, Dusty, and Rowan. Much like identical twins playing pranks on their parents, Nate, Julian, Mr. Pibb, Dusty, and Rowan spend much of their time trying to pretend to be whoever they aren't. Fred doesn't seem to fail to recognize Mr. Pibb, and Fran and Nate have been spotted socializing over a cup of tea with their lunch, but apart from those exceptions, most of the community cannot tell them apart and have given up with their constant exploits that only make it more difficult. Next, we move on to the narrow-eyed snail. His name, Bacon. Bacon is the beloved mascot of the aquarium. He enjoys the attention he gets as he slithers along the background, or front glass, or driftwood, or, well, pretty much anywhere. Like cats, they give very little thought to the rest of the community, despite that the rest of the community clearly cares for him. That wraps up this edition of the Fish Bios. Join us next time as we explore the TV tank, home of pirate guppies.